Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Important Work. I'm your host, Chris Angel, and I'm here with my new friend and guest / co-host, Anna Levin.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad to have you. I was nervous, like a half hour before our call. I'm like, I get to be interviewed by Anna today. And I'm very excited because I just respect you a ton. And even though I don't know you very long. And
likewise, it's mutual.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you guys listening to this know that from time to time, I'll have somebody on the show that's actually interviewing me because that's what we do for people. Like in our service, in our marketing agency, we actually interview you because we found that it's easier for the juicy stuff you say to come out when other people are asking you questions than you always having to figure out what you want to say. So thank you, Anna, for being that person for me today. We're talking about how to step into your purpose. You guide the conversation. Where do you want to take this? Where do you want to start?
Yes, I know there's so many places, and I love the fact that I know you just a little bit enough to pique my curiosity, and hopefully we'll bring people with us and get to know you on a deeper level, which is always fun for me.
Yeah, I love it.
First of all, I love the platform that you are creating, that you have created, and how it's helping people and heart-centered entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
However, there is always a backstory to this, and I know that we share something in common. We're both ex-teachers, so I'm just curious, just like kids are. Walk us through a little bit, and not so much the minutia of the mundane decisions that you had to make, but more so like the inside journey and the steps that you had to take that brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, this is so loaded.
I know, sorry.
I know, right? But so what I know is that coming out of college, my bachelor's degree, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a very passionate human being, and I always wanted to make a difference for people. And I was a custodian for a while. I worked at a church I did just different stuff. I was a server at a restaurant. I was really wrestling in my early 20s with what am I supposed to do for work? I don't think it's uncommon. I think a lot of people kind of wrestle with like, where do I fit? What do I love? What do I want to do? It was never clear for me. And so I thought, well, my mom was an elementary school principal for 30 years. Maybe I should be a teacher. People have said I'd be a good teacher. Mm-hmm. So I saddled up, applied for a master's program that was like a 14-month, highly intensive program to get a middle school endorsement and a teaching certificate. And it's interesting, in the first like 3 months before we did student teaching, like I loved the philosophy of education. I loved it. And then I got into public schools and I'm like, I do not love this. Yes. And I was student teaching sixth graders and hated it. And so I didn't finish that program. I actually got 10 months into a 14-month program and I just was so stressed. Mm-hmm. I don't get stressed. I was so stressed. I was like, this is not for me. And I cut bait and moved on.
Well, and God bless you, because of all the ages that you could possibly go into, you chose middle school.
I didn't know what I didn't know. I was like, middle school? Sure. In hindsight, I'm like, wow, if I had done elementary or high school, maybe I would have made it, but middle school was brutal for me. So I did not make that. But I would say I left that experience, though, not any clearer on what I wanted to do. That doesn't always feel good. I knew what I
found out what you didn't want to do, though.
There you go.
Which is great.
Yes. And I also found an appreciation for education, which was good. Like I do appreciate the process of education. I have a lot of opinions and convictions around that process. It's funny. So I would say it was probably another year or two. I went to work at Starbucks for a while. And while I was there, we had a regular who was a real estate agent at a local real estate company. And he always came in for his coffee. And he was like, you should get into real estate. And I had started reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And my mind was just open to what was next for me. And I thought, I should get into real estate, learn how to sell, learn how to build a business and invest. And so I got my license, not because I wanted to be a real estate agent, mm-hmm. but because I didn't know where I fit. And this was an easy thing to do, right? Like,
yes.
Like that is so common, I think, for real estate agents.
Yes.
Anyway, maybe that's common for you listening to this, but I didn't know what I wanted. So I got into that. And then I was like, well, I better make this work. I'm newly married. At the time, I think I was married a year. It took me 9 months to sell my first house. So we had like no money. Like I blew through our savings. My wife was like, why are you doing this?
Yes.
It was massively uncomfortable.
Yes.
But I remember listening to a tape, one of those motivational tapes from Jim Rohn in my car.
Love him. Yeah.
Do you love Jim Rohn? I love Jim
Yeah.
Rohn. Love Jim Rohn. And he would say, if you have a big enough why, you'll endure any how to get there.
Yes.
You know? And I don't know, I wouldn't say that I was able to state what my why was. I just knew that if I could make it in business, I would be able, a lot of options would open up for me. You know, I just knew that if I could be financially free, a lot of things I could do a lot of things.
Yes.
And that's what kind of kept me in the game. I was like, I know this is good.
Yes.
So.
And then,
yes. And then, so I sold my first house 9 months in. Within 3 years, I kind of evolved into the top 5% of my association in Tacoma, Washington. And then I was recruited to become
So you're still doing real estate?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So this is something that you're still doing?
I'm not now.
Okay.
I sold for 6.5 years. So I got my license at the age of 24.
Oh, okay.
I sold for 6.5 years through just through sheer hustle. Right. And determination, like not because I was great at business, but because I was good at relationship.
Yes.
I was able to build enough relationships that was able to bring me some success.
But that's amazing because you were young still. I mean, that's
yeah. I know. And that's the funny thing about being young is you, like in my experience, like when you're young, you're like, this is going to be great and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, easy, piece of cake. And then, real world kicks in. But here's the thing. I think, 6.5 years into it, from the outside looking in, I was successful. And I think sometimes people can stay in jobs or careers where they have reached some success, but it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
For me, I was successful from the outside looking in, but I resented my success.
Because?
I hated the sound of my phone. Everybody wanted my time and my attention. I had to deal with things that weren't in my zone of genius. I hated contracts. I didn't care about negotiations.
Right.
What I wanted to do was inspire people.
There you go.
In fact, it's interesting. This is to your question, but what I noticed in those 6.5 years of selling was when I would go out and sell, I would still come back into my office and I would teach classes to other agents. Mm-hmm. I loved teaching, which is really funny, right? Because of my teaching background.
Makes sense.
It does. I loved teaching adults who were in business because they were like, they wanted to be there. They were hungry for their freedom and their choices. And right. I just realized there was something for me personally about me getting juice off of teaching. I loved it,
Yes.
So I think when you're in a position long enough, you start to see what things fit and all the other things that don't. Yeah. And there were just a lot of things in selling real estate that weren't fitting me anymore.
I think what's crucial also, it's important for all of us to realize is that just because something didn't work in a certain job doesn't mean that quality cannot be used in some, because I love teaching myself. Mm-hmm. Not teaching myself, but teaching myself, but I love teaching.
Yeah, right.
So I think I love the fact that you discover it's like, oh, wait a minute, I still love teaching, but now I get adults and I actually get people that want to be in my classroom. And so that's great.
Yeah. It was good for me. I remember actually thinking before I took the role as a CEO, I became a CEO of a real estate company. I had 200 agents and I did that for 5 years. But before that happened, I remember talking to a friend and he used the word power zone, and he had put it in a spiritual context. Like when you're in alignment with God or with yourself or however you want to say that, you find this power zone where things come easier, results come faster, work doesn't feel like work. And I just remember feeling as a real estate agent, I'm like, this does not feel like a power zone.
Yeah.
I was like, this feels hard.
Right. It's the opposite of a power zone.
Yeah. And I sort of have, and I think this is true for people in finding purpose. I think in some ways we just kind of get used to the hardness of it all. And we think that's how it is. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. We start believing that that's the reality that we're supposed to live. Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so work for me was hard. It was exhausting. I resented my success. And as soon as and here's the weird part, because as soon as I was like, I had this conversation with God. I said, okay, God, I am willing. So I had for years had been like, I am not interested in asking you what your will for me is. I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want to do. And so in this moment, I was just, I don't know if you want to call it broken, but I was definitely in a space of like, something's got to change. And I remember saying on a walk to myself and to God, I said, if I am willing to step my toe out of the closet and say, what would you have me do? But if you tell me there's something to do that I don't want to do, I'm not doing it. And so, and as soon as I said that, the second after I said that, I was a new dad at the time, by the way. My son was probably a year or 2 years old. My first son, my first child. And I remember being filled with peace. And I just the sense I got was like, I'm your father. Like I would never ask you to do something I didn't feel you could handle. Right. And I only want what's best for you. And it was really weird because, I was so sure that coming out of a Christian background, I was so sure that God would ask me to do stuff that was like, I would be a martyr for.
Yes.
Right.
Oh,
yes. Is that?
No, I agree with you because my background is Catholic.
Okay. Yeah.
So the whole fear, but yet an inside knowing in me since I was a little girl was like, but God is unconditional love. Like,
yes.
Right. Yeah. So wonderful realization for you.
Yeah. And I think when I had that, I think all of a sudden, the weird thing was within 2 weeks of having that conversation with myself and God, within 2 weeks, I got that invitation to come run a company. Right. There was opportunity opened up, something new. So I think I'm trying to make this instructable here in terms of people listening. Like, I think part of this, like, how do you step into your purpose? Part of it is being open.
Yes.
And not having all the answers. You don't have to have the answers. And I think in my early 20s, I was like, I've got to figure it out and I've got to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's really taxing.
Yeah.
Super taxing.
I'm writing down the steps because this is good.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. So I think that was the beginning of things changing for me. I think sometimes in life you get, maybe it's because of you've been burned in relationships. I felt like I had been burned by multiple relationships in my early 20s. And so this was me saying, I don't need you. I don't need you, all of you. I don't need my old friends. I don't need anybody. I'm going to go figure this out.
Yes. Which is typically, I mean, it's just so understandable that we're going to get defensive at the beginning. But I think another thing that I can rescue from the story that you're sharing with us is that moment where you were just kind of like tired of fighting. Yeah. Just, kind of scared for what's to come because you don't see quite what's coming.
Right.
But then you also realize that there's something else that needs to come.
Yeah.
And then you going like, okay, just let me know, what is it? And that surrendering is just so powerful.
Yes. Love that. It's a great word. I did not like that word at the time. I did not like the word surrendering at the time. But I do like it now because I feel like when you're open, or my experience has been when I'm open and I'm asking the question, what is next? Without having the answer, it doesn't come always in the moment. But like I said, within 2 weeks, I had been offered a position to run a real estate company 300 miles away in a different city.
But it feels like, Chris, sorry for interrupting, but it feels like you surrendering to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's super deep. Because
it wasn't just God, because God is inside of us, right?
Yes.
It feels like you said to yourself, hey, you know what? I don't know just yet, but I think I can do this,
I want to say, in hindsight, knowing what I feel like I know now, I totally get that. I think at the time I said that, let me say it this way. How I understand my relationship to God now is we are one and the same.
Yes.
I love Wayne Dyer's analogy of this. Like, if the ocean is God and you took a bucket of the ocean, like what is in the bucket? Well, it's still the ocean. It may not be all the ocean, but it is the ocean, right?
Yes.
And I feel like, so that's my understanding of how God and I are the same and are one. But at the time it was much more of a separation theology where God is over there and I'm over here.
Yes.
But to your point, like, it doesn't matter. It still was me saying yes to myself and yes to what's next.
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you know you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
So I stepped into that role. Within a matter of a month or two, we actually moved my family 300 miles to run a real estate company. We did that for 5 years. And in that time, I've always loved leadership, always loved leadership, developing people, inspiring people. I learned a lot. Like I learned that I was still teaching because that was one of the things I loved. It's how I actually produced results. So one of the places to look for your purpose, if you're not clear on that, is where do you produce results?
Right.
Like, where do you get the most feedback from people? Like, if you notice that you do a certain thing and everybody's like, oh, yeah, you're really good at that. Or I feel really good when I am with you doing that. Those are good clues to your purpose. And it was just stuff I got fired up about. I love business. There's something about business. I didn't grow up a business person. There was just something about the puzzle of business that mentally intrigued me and in my heart.
Would you say that this is something that came to you fairly easy?
Which part?
So the part of producing results and stepping into...
The teaching stuff came easy. Like I understood concepts really well. I internalized them in a way that I could see what was missing for people trying to produce a result in real estate, for example. So that part, the teaching and the inspiring people came easy. The management stuff, some of the management. So in being a CEO, there's a lot of management you get pulled into. And I started learning over time. I'm like, I don't like that. Like who wants what office space? I don't care.
Yeah.
Who stole paper from the copier? I don't care.
Right.
I'm like, this is not. And the more I got pulled into like these little minutia decisions that need to be made, the more I was like, this is not what my life is for. And so I think as you go down when you're finding your purpose, when you're seeking your purpose, you'll go down the road of what's next because you're open. And as you go down what's next, you'll start to find what fits and doesn't fit. And you'll have a choice to make. And I had a choice to make. So 5 years in, I was like, I need to go coach and teach, because what I was clear about was that what I could do every day and never get tired of. This is the question. This is the litmus test for your purpose. What can you do or talk about every day and never get tired of? And for me, I could coach and teach, right? I could coach one-on-one and I could teach from a stage and never get tired of that ever. And so I decided to move on from the role of being a CEO into starting my own consulting company, because that's what my heart was telling me.
Perfect. So it is following your heart. And it's also, but as you're telling us the story, I can see how it was a lot of removing obstacles. It's a lot of like trial and error, and there's no error. I don't even like that word. I celebrated mistakes in my classroom. I'm like, who made a mistake? Let's all do something,
I did. Yeah. That's perfect.
And I would actually give extra credit for people that would raise their hand and tell me, the mistake that they made, so we can all learn.
Yeah.
We're so scared of making a mistake, and I'm speaking for myself. But I love your story because it's also like removing. Look, I believe that some people are born and they're like, okay, I'm going to be a physician, or I'm going to be and they already know since a young age. But many of us are, we're going to school per se.
Right.
And learning certain things as we get to evolve and expand and get to know what we're really meant to do.
Yeah.
So I love your story. But so what would you say, we have a few more minutes, but I would love to know if you can take us from that place in your story to the creation of this new platform that you have today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I stepped into creating my own consulting company in 2011. So a lot of that was new for me. I felt like I had to learn internet marketing, Facebook ads, creating landing pages and email. Like I went down this rabbit trail of a lot of stuff that really stole my energy. It sucked the life out of me. And I felt like I had a big enough why to endure figuring all that stuff out. In hindsight, I probably would have figured some way to outsource that faster. But I was just on my own path. And and in the process of all that, I found that learning those things helped me coach and consult with my clients because they were in the middle of selling real estate. My clients were real estate agents at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was learning in marketing, combined with my passion for being authentic, most of my tribe or my clients were really connected to how do we market ourselves in a way that feels authentic and not like we have to sell our soul to try to make a sale. Right. So I was able to take the things I was learning from internet marketing and pair it with my convictions for being authentic and transparent as a human. And that worked really well. So, I mean, there was a lot of buy-in. People loved that.
Yes.
Because it felt like it fit. But what I noticed, and I think this is good for the evolution of your purpose, you'll start to notice things that create more value and more utility that can actually pour fire on, add fuel to the fire that you're building with the efforts you've made. So I had made a lot of efforts I had created thoughts and frameworks and all these things, but for me, I felt like there was still something missing because I would coach people, but very often they would not execute on what they believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I noticed was they were too busy. They just wouldn't slow down. And number two, the technology learning curve was too much for them and they just would stop.
Right.
And so that is why, to your point, like we created this platform, which is, at Groundswell Agency, what we do is we do all of that content marketing for you. Wonderful. And you just get to show up and be your authentic, transparent, amazing human self, right? Like you get to be the best of you, and we take care of all the other stuff as it relates to marketing. And I'll tell you that I think there is a piece of purpose that is scary. To be a coach is pretty easy, other than you have to find your clients, but there's not a lot of moving parts attached to that.
Yes.
And I believe that coaching has important work, but when you're ready to do work that's bigger than you,
mm-hmm.
it gets very scary because all of a sudden you lose. I don't have control. It takes control out of the equation. And to build a marketing agency meant I would have more people that I would need to lead. I would have more expenses, more moving parts, more details to manage, and I don't like details. And so I think sometimes, but in response to that, what I was left with was this recurring feeling that this is what there is to do.
Right.
I the other day I said there are two litmus tests to the voice in your life or truth in your life. One, it feels true, and two, it's persistent. Like for me, I was like, this feels true. It feels right. It's what's right for my people. And then it wouldn't leave me alone. It was persistent. It was like, you got to do this. You got to do this.
Yes. And sometimes I love that distinction between like the voice and the why you're doing something, and then the what we like or don't like. And that's just also sometimes perhaps maybe I'm ignorant about it, but it's a matter of like seeing it in a different light. Now you have other people in your company that are taking care of details.
Right.
And that's wonderful. And it is more fun to do work together anyway.
It is. I really believe that. I actually don't even care what your behavioral style is. Like if you guys know the DISC profile, like you might be task oriented, but not, I think as humans, we're not created to work in isolation. I feel like more gets done and your purpose and vision goes further when you do it with other people. So
absolutely. Yeah. And it's celebrating each other's differences and strengths. Yeah. And this, we talk about it also even on a relationship level, with your spouse. And so many spouses compete, and it's kind of pointless instead of like celebrating each other's differences.
Yeah, that's really good.
Anyways, but going back to you, because we're running out of time, but I thoroughly enjoyed your story, and thank you so much, because it really took us on a very personal, vulnerable, deep journey of you and I think a lot of us can relate to changing and getting to know ourselves and getting to know what we don't want, which is as important. And some of the things that I'm left with is just being open. I mean, how simple, but sometimes hard and challenging it is to be open and to surrender to ourselves and to a bigger calling,
Yeah.
and producing results. I never thought about it that way. Purpose equals producing results. And once you start seeing that, it's almost like fuel, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I love this. I'm helping people, because I believe that we all are meant to help each other. That's what we all want to do. That. Look what happens when there's a catastrophe in the world. We all, oh my gosh, what do you need? Do you need food? Can I help you with your kids? That's what we inherently, I believe, that as human beings have inside. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, it's a fun conversation. It's always fun to, I think, look at your life and try to find the lessons in it. I think I'd say this to everybody listening, like where I would suggest you look is in, if you haven't clarified what your purpose really is at this point. What I believe is that we all have a bigger game to play, and your soul is constantly trying to communicate that to you. I believe that the soul's work is always to expand. It's to make a contribution, but it's also, not selfishly, but it's also inherently to expand who we are as individuals. Yes. To grow. And so for a lot of you, like me, you're looking outside of yourself for the answer of what is my purpose. And your purpose is not found in a book. You can't go to read a book and find your purpose. It only will be communicated to you through you listening and being open to what's next for you. And so you want to, when you do that, you want to listen for what feels true and what's persistent. And when you find those things, and that's it, then it's just taking the next step into what shows up. And it's going to be scary because it's not predictable and you don't have control.
Yes.
But it is filled with magic. I'm right now in this season of life, I keep getting so clear on how much magic and miracles are around me every day, every week, because I keep following this voice, and provision comes out of nowhere and amazing people come out of nowhere. And
yes. And it's also being able to receive.
It's
also being able to receive it. Yeah.
It's really good. So I think those are kind of the starting points for important work and finding your purpose. Like that's how you step into it, is you just have to listen and be open and take the next step.
Beautiful. I'm deeply inspired. Thank you, Chris.
Me too. Thank you. Isn't it funny how we can share and get inspired by our own stuff? We're like,
I know. It's like, oh my gosh, this is my story.
Yes. I know. I love it. It's so great. So great. Thanks for interviewing me. I would say to all of you listening, if you want to, if this is interesting to you, you're like, yes, I feel like I have bigger work. This is what we do as a company. We mine from you. We dig into like what your purpose is. If you feel like there's something stirring, you should have a conversation with us, because we're really good at figuring out what it is that you are here to do, and then broadcasting that to the world in one, a way that produces a result for you, but two, in a way that helps you continue to iterate and develop and nurture that body of work that you have from now until the rest of your life, that you have to create on this planet. So to do that, you guys can go to groundswellagency.com, and on that page, you'll learn more about how we help you do that. So Anna, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
So fun talking to you. Everybody who listened, thanks so much. Catch us in the next episode. And until then, see ya. Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.